Welcome to Snow Talk, the podcast series that brings you in-depth interviews for an insider's look at what makes our industry work. We will be speaking with snow industry professionals about life, about business and leadership in this often challenging and always satisfying industry. This episode of Snow Talk is brought to you by Western Snowplows. And now, enjoy Snow Talk, sponsored by Western.
Hi there, and welcome to the Snow Talk podcast. I'm a podcast for the snow professional and those passionate about the snow and ice industry. My name's Evan Newman. I'm the Senior Manager of Membership here at the Snow and Ice Management Association, and I'm happy to be bringing you part two of an important conversation around building a brand with our guests, Justin Gamester and Darcy Knowles. As a reminder, Justin is President and CEO of Piscataqua Landscaping and Tree Service. Darcy Knowles is owner and creative director at Darcy Creative, who's Piscataqua's Landscaping. Piscataqua Landscaping's longtime PR and creative partner. If you haven't listened to part one of this two-part series, I encourage you to hit the pause button and go to our episodes page and find it now. We talked about identifying whether a PR partner is the right fit for your business, how marketing can expand your geographic reach, and how your ROI can be increased by consistently building your brand and identifying online target audiences as well as the communities that you serve and how to reach them. So we received some great feedback on part one and wanted to follow up on some additional topics and tangible action items with Justin and Darcy during our time together today. Justin, thanks for suggesting a part two of this episode, and I'm sure our members and listeners are going to like it. So let's jump in. Darcy, Justin, as you both mentioned in podcast one, we live in a pretty interconnected world, whether it be in the communities we serve or in the digital communities that we're a part of or that we're trying to reach new customers at. Everything we do is displayed in public. Social media is the catalyst for this, obviously. Can you tell us how social media plays into brand awareness and how this has positively impacted your business? I know, Darcy, you and I were talking a little bit before, and I guess first things first, what does that audit process look like whenever a company is taking a look at, how successful that social media is? So that's a multi-part question there, I guess, but I'll turn things over to you to kind of chat a little bit about how that works.
Sure. So one of the things we've been doing lately, especially with new clients, is we're doing a competitive audit, which a piece of that is definitely a social media audit. And it compares a potential client or a new client's social media against two or three of their competitors so that we can really look at what's being done well, what isn't being done, where are the holes. But the real key with social is planning. It needs to be connected to some kind of goals. With Piscataqua, it's been when we did the website, so it was about just bringing awareness that there's a new website. So driving website traffic was a goal, lead generation in terms of filling out forms for requests for consultation. And then the third thing we've done a lot with Piscataqua is around recruitment, certain times of the year when that's really essential. And so the social media strategy is really focused on getting people to apply for jobs. So you don't want to overdo any of those. You want to have a nice mix. You want to have a very clear, determined posting schedule, whether that's 3 or 4 times a week. You need to understand the difference between Facebook and Instagram. Those are the two that we're really focused on primarily. But consistency, strategic communications is really the key to success. And then I would just add, and I'm going to let Justin jump in from his perspective, but using video, I think we talked about that a little bit in podcast one. Video really helps get people's attention. They're so overloaded with information. They kind of want to be entertained on social these days. So video and motion graphics are two great techniques to get them to stop scrolling and pay attention to what you're trying to tell them. Justin, you want to add something?
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly entertain people. I think I briefly touched on this when we spoke previously, but one of the things that I've learned with the social strategy is that it's not something, you can do at your leisure, right? So you can't decide, and I've had this discussion with other business folks, right, is that it's not like, well, I have time today, so I'll just kind of hop on and prance around and maybe post something, and then I'll go back next week and maybe I'll post something, maybe I won't. I think the most important part, right, is the engagement piece. So if you can't commit to doing it routinely, then you either shouldn't do it or should find somebody that can, because that's how the engagement occurs, right? And I think the different tactics that we use with our social strategy, for example, Darcy mentioned changing the flavor, I guess is the best terminology, changing the flavor based on what our goals are. So, and I also feel like before I felt like social was like a younger demographics type tool, but it's not, right? So we know that everybody uses social media. So when we're designing our plans to meet our objectives, we're directing those to the certain demographic that we want. I'll also say that, so we're Facebook and Instagram is our kind of two main things that we use. And one of the really nice tools is that when we take a look and do our monthly review, we can really break down exactly who's looking at our stuff, from gender to age to location. And so we really get some really great feedback on the tools we're using, and then can, adjust based on that. Darcy also mentioned the video piece. Super interesting, right? And we find that like our biggest hits, so to speak, are, and Darcy, correct me if I'm daydreaming here, but our biggest hits are when we like video or talk about our people. When we put our people, of course, with permission, when we put our people into our social digital strategy and tell a story about the folks that work for us, our team that show up to take care of your stuff, we get huge numbers. Like, people love hearing the story about the team. So I really think it's just been a, eye-opening experience. And of course, I'm not a pro, so I'm listening and learning along the way, but benefit for us for sure.
Yeah, I just want to riff off that for a second, because I was thinking back to when we had to convince Justin that social media was important. And, he did it reluctantly.
Very true.
He did it reluctantly. And at that time, one of the taglines we had for the company was celebrate beauty. So we were just really literally showing a lot of beautiful stuff, beautiful gardens, flowers, that kind of thing. And the data was showing us that our audience was really largely women, which was really not surprising. So we made a strategic decision that we really wanted to balance that out and have a more equal representation of men and women following and engaging with our posts. So we really shifted what the content strategy was. And part of that too was the culture, and, for good or bad, a lot of Justin's team are men. So showing them with their tools and sort of a little bit more of a masculine energy really started to draw in much more of a male audience. So it just goes to show that it is important to look at the metrics. It's important to look at the data. It's important to understand who you're trying to appeal to and create content so that it's relatable for that audience. And you can do it. You just have to pay attention. Like I said earlier, the numbers don't lie. And so use that to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you both said about the importance of storytelling and bringing the people from Piscataqua or from your respective landscaping or snow and ice removal company into the fold, because I was just talking with a friend last week about how important it is, because of the algorithms that we're working around, to show faces and show people. Darcy, I'm sure you could talk a little bit more about that, but it's just, it's interesting how these things are always changing a little bit, and we have to adapt to keep up with what's going on in the space. So that being said, shifting gears a little bit, one of the main focuses or pieces of feedback we received from episode 1 was that, hey, what's SEO? What's that even mean? SEM, what's that even mean? So search engine optimization and search engine marketing, respectively, are two tools that we said we wanted to touch upon within our time together today. These are more than just buzzwords in the space. Obviously, these are tools in your arsenal for business. Darcy, how can companies utilize this SEO and SEM tool set to promote their online presence?
Well, it's a pretty layered question. And one of the things that I see sometimes with new clients is they kind of have a thought process that it's a set it and forget it kind of task. once the SEO is put into the back end and the H1s are there and the keywords are there, that they can just forget about it. But that's part of, our process. As Justin mentioned, our monthly review meetings, we really take a hard look at how is the SEO performing, search engine optimization, meaning if someone's searching snow management near me, where are you ranking? And these days, anything past page 1 is not going to be effective for you. So our goal is that we are ranking page 1 for a set of keywords for each client. And that is what drives traffic. It's the organic aspect of search marketing, so that people are searching for you. They're specifically looking for the services that you offer. And you want to make sure if you're not ranking, you're losing opportunity, because it's just a huge way that people do business now. And the second piece of that is, we do website audits for clients when we first start out to see where the holes are. And there are performance metrics that also drive success with SEO, which is site speed and things like that. And now that people are using more and more mobile to do their searching, you want to make sure that your site is mobilely set up, optimized. So those are just some quick things. The reason I mentioned the monthly review is that we're always assessing, okay, we've dropped, we're ranking high, we're moving this keyword up, but certain times of the year or certain years, Justin's goals are different. So we can really hone the SEO strategy to appeal to that service line. So let's say, this year he has a goal. He wants to increase landscape lighting as a revenue stream. We can really hone in on that from an SEO standpoint, so that when people are searching landscape lighting from my yard, whatever those keyword phrases are, that he's ranking in that top pocket where the clicks come from. So then the sister to that is the search engine marketing piece, which is also known as pay-per-click. So you've got SEO, which is the organic, free kind of tool. And then the SEM is the paid version, where you're paying for clicks to your site. And the reason that's important and needs to work in tandem with your SEO is because those spots are at the very top of the page. So if you're succeeding with high rankings in the mid part of the page, and you're also showing up at the very top of the page, you're dominating that search query. So you're increasing the likelihood that someone is going to click on your link and come to your website. So the next piece is to make sure you make it easy for them to take action when they get there. What are you asking them to do? So you see, it's a very integrated, multi-level approach.
I've contemplated it as we always talk about this, but when you talk about keywords and setting that process up for success, Darcy, could you maybe explain what's a timeline look for that? Because it doesn't just happen, right? You don't just set everything up and then all of a sudden Google says, oh yeah, look, here we go, And I think I know, when we started doing this, that was something I had to understand, the forethought of thinking ahead so that you can actually plug those things in and get them to start working, and how long that really takes.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Everybody is so impatient now, they think, well, it's not working. And that's why most of our clients are annual clients. We have the plan. It's laid out for the whole year. We have the time and the space to make adjustments, which is a lot of the process. So you need to look at, well, what's working and what isn't, and what can we do to fix it? So there's a lot of problem solving that goes on with it. Establishing that first keyword list may be that a client thinks those are the keywords they want to be found for, but there's research involved to show us that's not really the kind of term that a potential customer is actually using to find you. We see what are the highest keyword volume, it's called. What are the keyword phrases that people are using the most to find what you do? So then you get that piece of research and you inject that into your content, into your site, as well as into your search ads, so that, if it's commercial snow plowing, for example, make sure you shout that from the rooftop so that it matches in those places, and Google will reward you for that. that you are a site they want to deliver to help somebody get what they're looking for.
I think because I think people just think you can I'll change it at about 10 o'clock today. And then hopefully by 5 o'clock, my results will pick up, and it just takes, Google doesn't work that way. Right. And so I know when we got into it, that's something I had to learn. Like there was the process of the machine, so to speak, recognizing, what your inputs are.
We typically say it takes 3 months to really show solid results. And then once you get there, you want to make sure you stay there. So there's that too. And, how do you do that? Well, you can do blog content. That's a great tool because you can keep adding to that content that's relevant to those keywords. So that's a really good way. The other thing when Evan and I were talking before we came on is sometimes people think, if you build your own site or you work with a web designer to build your site, there's some tools that are sort of baked into the platforms to build your site. And so a lot of people think, well, I have SEO, it's set up and I don't have to worry about it. It's not like that. It's ever changing. It's like every other digital marketing tool. You have to be on top of it. You have to look at the data. You have to understand the numbers. You have to use that to your advantage and make adjustments all along the way so that you continue to dominate. Otherwise, because it's such a competitive space, somebody could easily bump you out. That's kind of how fragile it is.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just add, Darcy brought up one thing about like the blog and kind of the paid pieces. And so if you're kind of new to the thought of doing this or, thinking about your strategy, again, something I learned along the way, it's like all the if you're going down the main road, all the side streets, you're inputting information that help you get to the end of the road, right? So it's the blog content, it's the videos, it's the paid piece, it's the I would say even the social aspect too, right? Like everything's driving you to the top. It's kind of like a parade. It starts and then everything feeds in and then, you finally get to the end, right? So I'll just point that out and leave you with that.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, we're talking about a lot of tactics and layers that, like Justin just pointed out, kind of lead you to where you want to go. But I would say if you're doing nothing else, make sure your site is well optimized because your site isn't just a place on the internet, right? It's a lead generating tool. So if you are well optimized and you continue to make sure that you're optimized and that you're ranking for what you want to be ranked for, it will generate leads for you.
We're going to pause just for a brief moment before we jump into some other tips and tricks around marketing, as well as some techniques. But we're going to recognize our sponsor for today's episode, Western, manufacturer of the Wide-Out Plow.
When plowing is your profession, it's up to you to keep the world moving through winter's worst. Less time worrying about your equipment is more time for clearing lots. So we'll cut to the chase. Only Western builds efficiency into every feature of our plows and spreaders. With 65 years of experience behind us, we know what it takes to save time and stay profitable. So we make one promise: more jobs done faster.
Okay, welcome back, folks, and thank you again for joining us for this episode of Snow Talk around building a brand part 2. What about email? We all get a lot of email. Email continues to rank high as a way to generate new customers, as a way to keep old customers and retain those folks in the space. I think that we talk about, how do we generate new customers? But we also need to remember, hey, we're looking at retaining customers in the space. Some people have given up on it as a marketing strategy, but quite frankly, that's foolish. We need different ways to cut through the noise. And as we talked about in this episode, it's got to be a multifaceted approach. So how do you all see it transitioning into leads, into retention?
Email, to me, the primary purpose for it and the benefit of it is to stay in touch with your customer base. And it's also, depending on what your business is, building that email list is a really important tactic. So inviting them to join your email, your newsletter on social, or having a place on your website for them to sign up for it. The trick to that, of course, is that you have to create the content and not just ask people to sign up and then never send them anything. So for Piscataqua, we do a monthly newsletter, which, has certain sort of components to it, one of them being a blog that allows us to set Piscataqua up as leaders in their field, whether it's something about current tree infestation or techniques or hardscaping or whatever it is. It allows us to really establish them as leadership in their field. And then we have like a community corner that demonstrates their commitment to the community through various sponsorships or even just letting folks know what's happening in the areas where they live. And then we have a team corner. Justin said we have seen from the data that people really love knowing who the folks are that go out every day and take care of their properties. So those are great stories to tell, a little bit about the background of the team member that we're highlighting. It gives it a personal touch. And then we do like a featured project that allows them to show off a little bit about something that they're really proud of. So it's a regular monthly thing. It's grown and it continues to get great open rates. It isn't necessarily a tool, as you mentioned, Evan, to get new customers, but we are always adding to the list. So when people sign up or Justin gets new customers, we add them to the list. And it's just a great touch point to say, we want to share this with you and thank you for being a customer.
Okay, so I agree with all of that. And I get a million emails. I probably delete more than I read. But here's what I'll share is that just because that's the way I kind of handle it, that is not the way other folks handle it. And so part of our success is I think we do have a pretty sticky relationship with our customers, which is a great thing. So I will share the reason for what I just said is because I get more feedback from folks who read our newsletter or read something on Facebook or Instagram to the point where sometimes I forget that we had put something out and I'm like, how did they know that? And it's just amazing to me. And again, from like Darcy said, the numbers don't lie. We're looking when we do our newsletter, right? We're looking at the data. The team can peel apart like how many people received it, opened it, where they went, how long they read. It's just like it's amazing to me. Again, don't look at how you would do it, right? So am I reading all that come to me? No, I'm not. I don't have the time. But I am so surprised at the amount of people that open and peruse through our newsletter, through our email campaigns. Again, existing clients, how it generates comments back. Oftentimes people will shoot an email back, oh yeah, I've remembered that I wanted to do this. Can you put me in touch with the right person? But just, and again, I just say this again and again and again. I'm amazed. People love a success story. So when we do something about an employee on our email campaigns, we get you can see the open rate on these things and it's just amazing. So, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I get a million emails that'll never work. Well, that's you. You're not speaking for your entire customer base. And you're certainly, and listen, if they don't want to get them, they can very politely opt out and they won't get another one. I don't know that we've gotten many opt-outs. I'm sure we could look, but our numbers on some of the stuff we do are so good that I never ask that question. How many people opted out this month? Just because I'm always quite shocked about how many people open it. So that's the piece I'll share to all of you from the guy sitting at his desk going, should we be doing this? And then every month, boom, the numbers are up again. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I would just add two things. One, it's a great way to cross-sell. So if you have a customer that uses you for one particular thing, they may not know that you also do this, so that you also sell this. So it's a great way, like Justin just said, that happens, oh, I didn't even know you did lighting, cool. I want to get some of that. And the other thing is, don't overdo it. Like the reason I think our open rates are so good is that we literally just do it once a month. So if you're sending something every week, or like retailers sometimes send things text or email daily, which is just, you finally forget it. I don't even want to hear from you anymore.
Darcy, great point. Do not infiltrate their mailbox. You're right. I think that's probably part of our success in this is that it's just right so that they're looking to hear from us, but they're not annoyed to hear from us, right? So
Justin mentioned at the beginning of conversation, Darcy, you've mentioned a few times about the power of engagement. It sounds like, with your customers and follow up. And Justin used a pretty good example of how someone comments on something or replies to an email and says, "Oh yeah, I didn't know you offered that," or how can I level up my service or buy something new? And what's the proper way to have that follow up conversation with them?
Sure, I can speak to the process we have, which is so if anything were to come through the social channels, so i.e. Instagram, Facebook. Here's the secret, right? If you weren't paying attention, we don't manage that in our office. Darcy's team manages all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they get any of those inquiries, they're monitoring those, and they're automatically forwarded to our sales staff. And so that gets handled. Or, if a response needs to happen through that same social channel, we'll draft it and they'll respond and give that person a method to directly reach out to the person that will help them. So we handle that. If we have their information, we'll do it directly. If we have to do that communication through social, Darcy's team will handle that and we'll get to them. And then from any kind of the engagement through the newsletter is interesting because it actually, when we do any of our newsletter stuff, most of it comes back to me. So when somebody hits reply, I get it and I'll either answer them directly or again, answer them. This person is going to get in touch with you ASAP. And, you just made me think of something, which is that cross-selling. We've had, again, sticky relationships, a lot of long-term customers that still don't know we do all the things we do. And I used to think, oh man, we're doing a bad job. But I think just people need to be reminded. So the best way to remind them is to tell them, right? So all the inquiries that we do that come back through whatever channel it is gets dealt with promptly. So we don't lose them.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that from a sort of technical standpoint, you want to always have inbound links that make it easy. So if we're writing a blog about tree care, we make sure we have a link embedded in that content that brings someone to that landing page that allows them to easily fill out an inquiry form. So there's that piece too. I mean, people want to talk to Justin, so they do that. But we also want to make it easy for them to get to the right place in the website that allows them to take action. And same thing with the social posts. You want to have links in your captions that make it easy for people to understand more about what you're talking about because you're limited with what you can do on a post. So inbound links are also really important.
So jumping back to old-fashioned mail marketing, trifold or a postcard in hand. Maybe that's a bad example, but what are some of those examples of what Piscataqua is doing, and what you've seen be successful, Darcy, with Darcy Creative, and maybe taking a step back because maybe email doesn't work as a way to connect with some customers. How are we reaching maybe that small percentage that it's not working with?
I think one of the reasons that when we first started direct mail, it was because Justin had wanted to move into a new geographic territory where his brand wasn't really known, and it was hard to penetrate because it was kind of a little bit of a closed community. They had their folks that they were dedicated to working with. So we came up with a strategy to do a 3-part direct mail. And for whatever reason, 3 is the magic number when it comes to direct mail, because 1 isn't enough and 2 isn't quite enough yet either. So you get to be strategic about what that story is you're telling over 3 parts. So we decided to do, and I've had success with this over my career, if you send something that's 3-dimensional, not like a paper postcard and in some cases, though, that does work well. It depends on the client. But for Justin, he's high end. We're really all about creating a position of 1 for him in whichever community they are in. And so everything we do is to communicate that these are the leaders in this field. So we came up with the idea to do these 3-dimensional direct mail pieces that were going to be something that these guys, the people who received them, were going to want to hold on to. So it ranged from, beautiful golf umbrellas with the Piscataqua logo to rocks glasses with an etched logo on them, we had some more fun with some tennis balls that had the logo and some golf balls. So, we really did a lot of cool things that we knew were going to appeal to this audience. So the first thing I would say about direct mail is know your audience and cultivate the list. And Justin and his team did a great job, like really honing in on the neighborhoods they wanted to get into and created the direct mail list for us so that we knew that these were real customers that they wanted to sort of court. And then we created these direct mail campaigns to get their attention, A, and to invite them through enthusiastic copy to give us a shot, give us a chance. And that has been very successful in terms of establishing a foothold in that particular community. And we just repeated that in another Lakes region community that Justin's company is expanding into. So it can be super effective. I know a lot of your folks are commercial. Most of their customers are commercial. And the same thing goes for that. Like really understand who are the people you're trying to get in front of. Send them something that's going to get their attention and give them a reason to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. So for those of you thinking, oh, you did what? How many did you send? So to Darcy's point, our lists were created. We didn't buy lists. We literally put the time in, and we did we mapped out specifically the areas where we maybe had some customers and wanted to increase our density. And we literally went and found the homes and verified addresses and things like that. So it wasn't, we didn't just buy 1,000 names and then, throw the label on box and send it out. I mean, this was really thoughtfully done and really thoughtfully created from a mailing standpoint. To speak to the commercial side of things or, industrial, whatever the case is, it's, again, know your audience, right? This can be done to a number of different genres of clientele. Just know your audience and think long and hard about what makes them tick. I can tell you from experience that I've had some responses to these types of direct mail campaigns immediately, positive and negative, right? So people will call and be like, it's really great that you're sending me these. Stop. We're very happy. Okay, no problem. We'll take you off the list. Nobody really ever asks how we got their name, but we literally, went through the town assessor's office to find out where their real mailing address was. But positive feedback of, I've been looking to make a change. You've given me a reason to give you a call. I've also personally, and I'm not the only one in our organization, but I've personally gone on a sales appointment to people that received something a year prior, and finally it was not working out with their current vendor. And whether it was a coffee mug or a Yeti or the golf umbrella, right? They remembered to call us, and that's all we're really asking, right? Change is hard. You might be happy, but you might not be happy in 6 months. And so if you just remember that we're the other choice to give us a try, that works for us. Most of the time, the success rate shows that it's worth the effort to do the mailing. And again, knowing your audience, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but know your audience. That also means know where you're going to direct mail something to them, because otherwise your efforts get lost. If it's not going to the right place, they may never get it. So it's, to Darcy's point too, put a really nice glossy type of flat card or anything of those sorts. Those still do work, but you just got to know your audience.
Any other thoughts on this final piece before we wrap up? Darcy, Justin, any final thoughts here?
I would just like to share with your audience that there is something through the U.S. Postal Service called Every Door Direct Mail that allows you to actually go in. If you don't have the bandwidth to do the custom list, you can go in and purchase postal routes. So there may be industrial parks or those kinds of targets for your audience where you can actually deliver it through the Postal Service. And sometimes a series of 3 jumbo postcards with a creative message. That works really well for a lot of our clients, for our HVAC client, or it depends on the thing. It doesn't have to be this really fancy thing in a box or a tube. That, could be a really successful tactic for your listeners to employ.
Yeah, you know what, Darcy? It's I think with our business that, so you're right, the success from that campaign for like an HVAC or maybe perhaps a painting contractor or something along those lines, right? Where, the structure matters, right? So you're looking for like the structure and, maybe a demographic financially and so on and so forth. So for us, the reason that we have to be careful, and this goes to, summer and winter, right? Like this is not specific to grounds maintenance. Demographics addresses the financial piece of the demographics, like those all may fit a bill, but there may actually not be anything for our company to service at some of these addresses, right? So if it's a 6-unit condo on the water and all they have is 2 beds out front and the parking is underground, right? They might meet our demographic, but there's nothing for me to do there. So I've kind of wasted my space there. So for us, really going out and like understanding, not only is this a place where we want to build density, but there's actually something for us to do at this property, winter or summer. That's why it was important for us to kind of handcraft the list.
Well, I appreciate you both so much for doing both this episode as well as part one. This is a super important topic. As I mentioned at the beginning of our first episode together, one of the number one reasons members come to CIMA is they're looking for marketing materials, how to build a brand, how to build their business. And I think this is a pivotal part. Again, I appreciate you both joining me on today's episode of Snow Talk, as well as to all the listeners who are tuning in. We appreciate you being here with us. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, if you want to find some time to chat with Justin or reach out, he's a fellow member, reach out to him by finding his information in the snow contractor directory that we have online. Just search Piscataqua Landscaping and you'll find him. If you want to talk to Darcy, this isn't a plug. She didn't ask me to do this, but I think that she's very knowledgeable. She can be found at darcycreative.com, Darcy with an I. So I really appreciate the both of you. I appreciate our listeners. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that I appreciate our sponsor, Western Whiteout Plows. If you have learned something from today's podcast, please share it with a friend or peer. If you want to learn more about CIMA or how to further engage with us, reach out anytime to connect with us, either at www.cima.org, via LinkedIn or Facebook.
Thanks for joining us for Snow Talk, sponsored by Western Snowplows. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out the latest episodes of Snow Talk, including any you may have missed, at www.cima.org/podcast.